Mark. I put together this little board here for us to sort of dive deep on your tattoo and figure out what you can do better for next time and to sort of understand what happened here with the healing a little bit. I just want to make sure I got some stuff right. You mentioned that you used a 20% ink for the lines here and a 40 and 60 or 80% wash for shading this. And I'm going to go into a little bit about how I would like for you to change the way you think about gray washes and also how you use them and which gray washes you use. I'm actually going to recommend you to mix your own, but I'll get to that later. The first thing I want to talk to you about is after seeing the reference image and comparing it to the tattoo, I understand that it sort of ended up looking like this after hearing that you used the specific cups that you did. And I think I realized that I probably want to help you to change the way you think about and look at black and gray wash, really how it's done in tattooing. I know you've been drawing for a long time, so this here now shouldn't be super unfamiliar to you. What I'd like to do is to go over this reference with you and sort of make some analytical observations about it. Number one, if we were to say we want to make a tattoo out of this image here, then we would ask ourselves, okay, is this image a good reference to make a sort of realism tattoo of? And I can say, upon looking at it, yes, it is a pretty good reference. But what I would say is that with every reference you pick, first of all, want to look at like how bright or dark the image that you're choosing is and the sort of how the light falls onto the object and see, whether you like that or not. Some images online are just like way too bright. And if we were to try to copy an image this bright, exactly like it is as a tattoo, it would be very bright and not look so good. So we want to make sure we're sort of picking images that have dramatic lighting and high contrast, meaning like the brightest brights are pretty bright and then the darkest darks are also really dark. So you get this like really strong picture and a powerful picture. So that I look for. But I would say that this image is a really good tattoo reference. I think it would translate really well as a tattoo. Just because of the way the sort of shading here is. Like we have all these dark parts and we have some like straight, angles and a lot of even gray tones like here, it's all like, it's cool. And then this texture here that we could try to capture and all that. So, but the first thing I do every time with almost any reference that I want to use is to do a little levels adjustment. That is really like just adjusting the brightness and the darkness of the dark parts. And we can sort of increase the contrast a little bit by making the dark parts a little darker, not that dark, but like that dark, and then making the bright parts a little brighter, not that much, but here. So now we've actually sort of increased the contrast a little bit in this picture. And generally speaking, in tattoos, we want to do high contrast images, not too high contrast, but generally, a realism tattoo looks way more impressive and it reads much better, especially from afar, if the tattoo has good contrast. It'll also age better because we add enough black ink there and there's enough like black and light, meaning that, there's not a lot of, or too many light gray tones that will fade because it's always the lighter, more, watered down tones that fade the quickest. So, I do this every time almost, right? I just want to increase the contrast a bit on this to make it a perfect reference. So now we've done that. And so now if I were to tattoo this, but I would just very simply look at it as if I was like a copying machine. I would say that this whole part, there's this like gray part of the gun here. This part of the gun is really like covered in the same sort of gray, right? There's only like a few variations in here. And on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being white and black being 0, I would say that this tone in here, roughly, is about a 3 on this scale, right? This tone matches kind of that tone that we see up there. There are some small variations in there, but generally speaking. Okay, and then I would say this part here, this like sort of straight line here on the gun that kind of goes into this part. All of that there that's kind of pure black, at least right here. Then it gets a little lighter up here, but here, at least here, is pure black. And it actually goes all the way back here and a little bit here. Then there's some other pure black details around. But yeah, let's say that that part is pure black. And so this is how I sit with an image. When you become sort of super analytical like this, and also really objective about what tone do I see in front of me, it gets a lot easier, especially for somebody like you who's been drawing for so many years, to literally just copy what you see. So if I was tattooing this, I would be like, okay, on this whole part, pretty much, I need kind of a 3 gray. And I would do that. Boom. You know, it's also a lot in how you stencil the tattoo, but it looks like you stenciled it really well. Just like becoming more analytical about making realism will help you a lot. Because all you have to do is to sort of like look at the reference and be right, pure black going into a darker gray. Okay, then we make that pure black. We take our pure black ink, and then we sort of shade it out to be a little bit of a darker gray here. And just look at it 1-to-1. It simplifies it a lot, and it actually makes you a much better realism artist because you can be that much accurate with your images. And that takes me into how you should think about ink cups, okay, and gray wash for tattoos. Gray wash is not like using different colors. Like if I want to get a 7, if I want to tattoo this, let's say I want this part to be a 7 here, then I wouldn't go and mix a cup of ink that has, a 7 in gray wash. But there are many ways to get to that result, actually, with a cup of ink. Some tattoo artists, they actually only use 1 cup of pure black, and then they shade with that black any tone on the scale. Now, I don't necessarily recommend that. It's more like neo-traditional artists and old school artists that can sometimes just use like 1 cup of black. But I encourage you to sort of open your mind on how you think about gray washes, because I personally, I tattoo actually a little bit more like a traditional artist. My cup system is very, very simple, and you can actually check out how I mix my cups or like my gray wash. I actually don't use any gray wash sets. I mix my gray washes straight into the ink cups when I tattoo each session. And I'm just going to go over it super quick, how I have it. These are my ink cups. In cup number 1, I actually have pure black ink. In this one, I have pure black. And in the middle cup, I actually only fill up to about 80% of the cup. So like almost full. And I actually pour the black ink right into the cup. And then in the cup number 3 here, I actually put only if it's a normal sized cup, like a 1 centimeter diameter, I put maybe 2 drops in there. So there's just like a little layer, a super small layer of ink. And then I take distilled water and I fill the cups, like these 2 last cups, 2 and 3, I fill them up with water to the top. So I actually use these to achieve every tone I want in a tattoo. And the way I do that is that I don't rely too much on what cup I dipped my needle in. I actually rely more on how hard I'm tattooing or how much I'm working a certain area. Like, for example, I could use my black ink cup to actually achieve, pure black, but also like any tone between 0 and, let's say, a 6 or a 7. I can get all these with a pure black. It just depends on how softly I'm shading on the skin with it. Because if I shade really softly with a pure black, you get kind of like a very light gray, depending on how hard you stretch the skin and depending on a few things. With my cup number 2, there's actually just enough water in it, so I can get really almost any tone with this. I can use it for 8 to a 2, I would say, even a 1, because there's so much black in here that I could not make it pure black, because if you ever want to make something that's purely black, you need to use a pure black. So that's the trick here. But cup number 2, I could get close to black, but not quite. And that one is actually really important. That tone is a tone that a lot of tattooers miss out on because they don't look properly. They don't analyze the image properly to see the difference between a pure black and a super duper dark gray that's not pure black. And same with the lighter tones, like seeing the difference between a 9, an 8, and a 7, that's hard. But those three differences are so important to capturing right when you're creating any realism tattoo. So the rule here is really that I mix between all these cups. Sometimes I can dip once into my 2 and then straight into number 3. Then I get a mix of these. And if I have a mix of those two, I can make it like fairly dark, like a 4, but I could go all the way up to 8 or actually even a 9. It's more in my hand. It's all about how I shade. Like if I work it for longer, I'll get up to this, like 4 or 5. I can build it up, I can layer it so it gets a little darker every time. Or I can just like quickly shade over it and you'll get a very light tone from that. And as I said, you can always mix a dark color to be lighter, but the one thing, and this is very important, the one thing you cannot do is get a light color or light wash to become true black. Like for example, if I was shading with a cup number 3 here, just pure cup number 3, very light, and I would like layer it. First it would look like a 9. Maybe if I would layer it again, I would probably go up to 8. And if I do that 10 times, I'd probably get to maybe somewhere here, a 5 or a 4, just layering over and over again. But by that time, I would have hurt the skin so much, like so much that that tattoo would just heal up being either nothing or extremely light there. So that's the thing. You can't take a light tone and make it a lot darker. Like if you want a pure black, like, here or here, I advise you dip your needle in a pure black and make that pure black right away. And if you see a tone like this, like a gray, like a dark gray, try to mix up a dark gray in your needle by like, first dipping in the black and then maybe like washing it down a little bit with this, making it just a bit lighter. And then you start to shade this and you try to get to your desired tone as quickly as you can without hurting the skin so much. The goal in general in tattooing is that we want to hurt the skin as little as possible. And oftentimes that means tattooing as little as possible. But disclaimer, getting like darker grays like this one or anything, between 1 and 5, I would say, that takes layering and you are allowed to layer. I layer a lot, but it's a matter of developing experience and a sense for how much you can layer before you overwork the skin. So that's really it. So yeah, my biggest advice for you would actually be to start thinking of gray washes more like a sketch artist. Like when you sketch a drawing, you don't have, well, you can get it, but you don't really have 10 different pens for every tone that you want. You can use one pen and just like, adjust your pressure and adjust the layering to get different tones. And it's actually very similar with tattooing. So actually, I would advise you to try to skip that dynamic set and mix your own bottles, maybe with my series, or mix straight into the cup like I do. And like primarily start to look at any reference image as just a series of different tones. You can start to look at these images and say, okay, how do I copy this one to one? Yeah, we have this tone here. It's about da da da. So you become really like a robot almost. And yeah, it's going to be a lot easier to do realism that way. I really, really hope this was helpful.